Have you ever reached into your kitchen cabinet, grabbed a bottle of vinegar that's been sitting there for who knows how long, and wondered if it's still good? Maybe the label is faded, the cap a little sticky, and yet somehow it still smells just as sharp and strong as the day you opened it. Unlike milk, bread, or even cooking oil, vinegar seems almost immune to time, unchanged, unfazed, and always ready to use. But how can something so simple last practically forever without spoiling? Today, we will uncover the strange science behind a liquid that seems to defy expiration, right here on History of Simple Things. At first glance, vinegar doesn't seem all that special. It's just a clear or slightly colored liquid with a strong smell and a sour taste. But chemically speaking, vinegar is quite unique. It's made primarily of water and acetic acid, typically around 4 to 8% acidity depending on the type. That acidity is the key to everything. It's not just what gives vinegar its tangy flavor, it's also what makes it incredibly stable over time. To understand why vinegar doesn't expire, you have to think about what expiration really means. When most foods go bad, it's because microorganisms like bacteria, mold, or yeast start to grow and break them down. These tiny organisms thrive in environments where there's moisture, nutrients, and a neutral or slightly acidic pH. Foods like fruits, dairy, and cooked meals provide perfect conditions for them to multiply. Vinegar, however, flips that script entirely. Its high acidity creates an environment that's hostile to most forms of microbial life. The acetic acid disrupts the internal systems of bacteria and mold, essentially making it impossible for them to survive or reproduce. In other words, vinegar preserves itself. It doesn't need refrigeration, preservatives, or special storage conditions to stay safe. It naturally resists the very processes that cause spoilage in other foods. Interestingly, vinegar's durability isn't just a modern observation. Humans have been using it for thousands of years, not only as a flavoring but also as a preservative. In ancient times, people used vinegar to pickle vegetables, preserve meats, and even clean wounds. Its ability to prevent spoilage made it incredibly valuable long before anyone understood the science behind it. But here's where things get even more fascinating. Vinegar is actually the result of a controlled spoilage process. It begins with something sugary like fruit juice or grain and undergoes fermentation. First, yeast converts the sugars into alcohol. Then, a specific type of bacteria called acetobacter takes over, converting that alcohol into acetic acid. What you end up with is vinegar, a substance born from microbial activity, yet one that ultimately becomes inhospitable to most microbes. This creates a kind of paradox. Vinegar is made by bacteria, but once it's fully formed, it prevents other bacteria from growing. It's like a transformation from something alive and active into something stable and self-protecting. So if vinegar doesn't expire, why do some bottles still have expiration dates? The answer has more to do with quality than safety. Over time, vinegar can undergo small changes. You might notice slight cloudiness, sediment forming at the bottom, or even something called the mother floating inside. This gelatinous, web-like substance might look strange, but it's actually harmless. It's made up of cellulose and acetic acid bacteria, and it can even be used to make new batches of vinegar. These changes don't mean the vinegar has gone bad. They simply reflect natural processes happening over long periods. The flavor might mellow slightly, or the color may darken, especially in varieties like balsamic vinegar, but the acidity remains strong enough to keep it safe for consumption. Storage can still play a role in maintaining vinegar's best quality. Keeping it in a cool, dark place with the cap tightly sealed helps preserve its flavor and appearance. Exposure to air over long periods can lead to evaporation or slight dilution, but even then the vinegar doesn't become unsafe, it just becomes less potent. Another reason vinegar lasts so long is that it lacks the nutrients microorganisms need to grow. Unlike foods rich in proteins, sugars, or fats, vinegar is relatively simple in composition. There's not much for bacteria or mold to feed on. Combined with its acidity, this makes it one of the most shelf-stable substances you can keep in your kitchen. In fact, vinegar's resistance to spoilage is so reliable that it's often used as a cleaning agent and disinfectant. While it's not as strong as industrial cleaners, its acidity can kill certain bacteria and break down mineral deposits. This dual role, as both a food and a cleaning solution, highlights just how chemically stable and versatile vinegar really is. Still, it's worth noting that doesn't expire doesn't mean never changes. Over very long periods, especially if improperly stored, vinegar can lose some of its sharpness. The flavor may become less vibrant, and in rare cases, contamination from outside sources could occur if the bottle isn't sealed properly. But under normal conditions, vinegar remains safe and usable far beyond any printed date. So the next time you see a dusty bottle of vinegar sitting quietly in your cabinet, you'll know there's no mystery expiration waiting to surprise you. What you're holding is a liquid shaped by fermentation, protected by acidity, and preserved by its own chemistry. It may change slightly over time, but it won't spoil the way other foods do. And that's the quiet brilliance of vinegar. It doesn't fight time, it simply outlasts it. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.